The Indiana Fever finally got the moment their fans had been waiting nearly a decade to feel again. A playoff win. A night of grit, urgency, and poise. A closing sequence that will live in the franchise's highlight reels for years. And then, just as the celebration should have been the headline, the story turned. Cameras caught a strange interaction at mid-court between a league security guard and Sophie Cunningham, on the roster but unavailable as she recovers from injury. Wearing a bulky leg brace and standing with teammates during a stoppage after a hard fall. What should have been pure joy became something else. A viral flashpoint that prompted questions about league priorities, consistency, and how the WNBA handles its biggest personalities in its biggest moments. Let's start with what should still be the lead, basketball. The Fever, battered by injuries and without several rotation pieces, defended, executed, and delivered a postseason win that felt like a reset for the franchise. The game tilted on a late run highlighted by Kelsey Mitchell's shot-making and Aaliyah Boston's composure around the rim. It ended because, with seconds left and the margin razor-thin, a wing defender read an inbound, jumped a passing lane, and sealed the night with a game-winning steal. That defender was Lexi Hull, and the building erupted the way playoff buildings do when the right play finds the right player at the right time. Odyssey Sims, who had been down hard minutes earlier clutching her shoulder, returned to help steady the offense late. Indiana's short-handed roster, missing Caitlin Clark and others either to injury or minutes limitations, found ways to win a game that could have slipped away. This is where we should have stayed, praising Lexi Hull's defensive instincts, Kelsey Mitchell's late-game leadership, Aaliyah Boston's interior control, the resilience of a team that refused to fold. Instead, a stoppage caused by a player down on the floor turned into the evening's other headline. A league security guard moved to clear space near mid-court and approached Sophie Cunningham in what video makes clear was an assertive, close-quarters tone. Cunningham, wearing a visible brace and not in game shape, stood her ground. She didn't run onto the court. She didn't escalate. The camera caught her expression shifting from confusion to that familiar Cunningham steal. Exactly the look fans have seen when she draws a charge or stares down the bench after a dagger three. Within minutes, the clip was everywhere. From a policy perspective, there are reasonable guardrails in place at every level of professional basketball. When a player is down, officials and medical staff need space. Security personnel are often instructed to help clear the immediate area to minimize crowding and keep emotions in check. That's their job, and when it's done well, nobody notices. What the clip showed, however, was a poor read of the room at best. An injured player, clearly limited, waiting at mid-court during a stoppage with teammates and staff nearby, approached by a guard who looked more interested in asserting authority than in assessing a situation charged with emotion. Fans instantly sensed the mismatch and reacted the way social media always does, with an avalanche of opinion. What followed was less about the letter of any rule and more about the optics of the moment and the history wrapped around it. This isn't the first time WNBA security or officiating has dominated a news cycle when the basketball itself deserved the spotlight. Fans quickly stitched this incident into a broader narrative. Selective enforcement, selective outrage, and a culture that seems to protect some players while putting others on the wrong side of every storyline. Cunningham's reputation, fiery, outspoken, unapologetic, got thrown into the debate immediately. So did a season's worth of what many Fever supporters believe have been missed whistles against Caitlin Clark and similarly inconsistent responses from the league office when superstars who don't fit a preferred image draw contact, attention, and criticism. Let's be clear about the stakes for the WNBA. The league is growing. Its audience has expanded rapidly thanks to a confluence of factors. Great games, identifiable stars, the streaming era that puts highlights in front of casual viewers, and the arrival of a marquee rookie whose impact moved every needle. This playoff run should have served as proof of concept. Even when Clark can't play, even with a short bench, the Fever are watchable, competitive, and clutch. That's what the product looks like when it works. When that product gets overshadowed by a security guard squaring up to a player in a brace, the league's progress story loses its thread. The night's viral moment should have been Lexi Hull's steal. Instead, fans spent the next morning arguing about a confrontation that had nothing to do with why anyone bought a ticket. Was Sophie Cunningham singled out? That's the question fans hammered into comment sections across platforms. Many argued that her persona, magnetic to supporters and maddening to opponents, made her a target for league staff ready to err on the side of enforcement rather than empathy. Her supporters point to a pattern. When players who behave as the league prefers get into on-court dust-ups, the talking point becomes passion and leadership. When someone like Cunningham refuses to shrink and doesn't massage quotes for media comfort, the label becomes villain. This isn't about rewriting every headline that preceded this one. It's about recognizing that the WNBA's brand is built on two pillars that can coexist: star power and competitive grit. Fans want both. They react quickly when they feel like one comes at the expense of the other. The league's defenders will say the security guard was doing a job in a charged moment, and that footage doesn't always capture context. A fair point. But intent matters far less in the public sphere than impact. The impact was a player in a brace approached unnecessarily and millions of viewers seeing a confrontation where patience would have done fine. That's on training, not on a single guard. If the WNBA wants to avoid nights like this going forward, the solution is easy and organizational. Clarify sideline and stoppage protocols for staff working near benches. Ensure that players on inactive lists understand where they can and cannot be during treatment breaks. And, crucially, recognize that players checking on each other during stops is part of the game's culture. There's no reason those responsibilities should collide. This is where the business implications creep in. The WNBA says it wants growth, bigger gates, more sponsors, a secure media rights future. All of those goals are reachable. All of them depend on consistently making the product more important than the noise around it. When a night of legitimate basketball drama devolves into a league's self-inflicted controversy, it undercuts that message. Fans new to the sport, pulled in by Caitlin Clark's gravity or by a team's clutch play, come away wondering what exactly they signed up for: a league that celebrates defense and composure, or one that turns attention to policing the sidelines while its best moments get 18 seconds on the official feed. Many fans who weighed in, particularly those who follow Indiana closely, argue that what happened to Sophie Cunningham is part of a broader double standard. They point to incidents where other star players have been protected by narratives and associations that don't extend to Cunningham or Clark. They cite more than a season's worth of hard contact, post-whistle shoves, taunts, and targeted publicity gone unanswered by the league office. The argument goes beyond fairness. It hits the business nerve. If you have two players like Cunningham and Clark, popular, instantly recognizable, able to fill arenas and timelines, you protect them. You don't treat them as problems to manage. You certainly don't allow your own staff to become part of their story on a night that should belong to the game. That doesn't mean turning every confrontation into a cause. It means giving fans fewer reasons to question whose side the league is on when things fall apart. The contrast here is easy to fix. Celebrate the basketball first and most. Hull's late-game steal wasn't luck. It was instinct and preparation. Kelsey Mitchell didn't stumble into those crucial possessions. She crafted them. Aaliyah Boston didn't float into a double-double. She earned it with position, strength, and poise through contact. Odyssey Sims didn't return to a game she didn't need. She did it because a roster needed a veteran present in real time. These are the stories every league tells when it wants to grow. Straight-line narratives fans can rally around. What about the long-running allegations of selective protection and selective outrage? The best answer is the one that keeps fans: transparency and consistency. When a player is down on the floor, here's what security does and does not do. When a crowd reaches the edge of friendly banter and becomes abusive, here are the steps the arena team takes. When a rookie draws bad contact repeatedly, here's how the league audits officiating and responds. None of this is controversial or difficult. The NBA, NFL, and NHL publish protocols and put people in charge of enforcing them. If the WNBA wants its conversations to live in first quarters and fourth quarters, that's the path to get there. Sophie Cunningham herself handled the moment the way professionals do. She didn't scream. She didn't escalate. She stood still and made it clear she was not going to be pushed off a place she had a right to occupy. Later, when she spoke about the night, she did so with the humor and directness that make her a fan favorite. She admitted the nerves of being in street clothes for a game that mattered. She teased that the team's success is making some of their opponents mad we're here. Not as a blunt instrument, but as a reminder that the Fever are not supposed to be a footnote this fall. That answer made fans love her more, not because it took a shot at anyone, but because it sounded like someone warm enough to be a teammate and tough enough to be an opponent. Which is the larger point. Cunningham, like Clark, is exactly the kind of star a rapidly growing league should be leaning into. She's polarizing, in the best way. She gets people talking. She trends even when she can't play. Her interviews jump out of timelines and into debate shows. She is one of those players, every league has a few, who functions as a heat source. You don't have to love her game to be drawn to her. You don't have to agree with what she says to recognize that she gives fans something to choose. That energy isn't a threat to a league's image. It's its bloodstream. The outrage that followed the security confrontation wasn't just about Sophie. It was about the way fans perceive the league's treatment of arrow drawing players. In one frame, you had a durable narrative, a yes or no sir approach to managing personalities. In the next, you had the reality. A sport that desperately needs outsized and censored characters to fill 20,000 seats when the calendar rolls over to next year's broadcasts. If you want mainstream relevance, you keep the focus on who closes, and you avoid giving clips of a security dust-up more oxygen than a block that stops a run or a steal that ends a night. So what should the WNBA do next? The answer is realistic and direct. First, acknowledge the moment for what it was, a poorly handled interaction in the immediate aftermath of a hard fall. Second, remind teams and staff of the basic protocol. During stoppages, injured players on the inactive list can stand near the bench or at mid-court with teammates unless the officiating crew or medical staff request clear space for treatment. Third, give fans what they want in the official post-game package. A highlight breakdown that praises the Fever's late-game execution, a feature on Lexi Hull's instinct, and an update on Odyssey Sims's status. Fourth, retrain security for playoff scenarios. De-escalation first, assumptions last. The W's job isn't to clamp down on personality. It's to stage and protect the basketball. That's how you win weekends, not just clips. The Fever, for their part, did everything a playoff team is supposed to do. They defended with heart. They executed under pressure. They lifted a building to its feet. This run, against a backdrop of injuries and skepticism, should be the template for how the league sells itself. A tough team, an energized crowds, and a city that loves what it sees. If the WNBA wants those storylines to stick, it has to keep the incidental stuff from becoming the story. It has to let players be exactly what they are, athletes who care deeply about their teammates, their teams, and the